takeaways. What a week of football. Week 12 had some fantastic storylines. And yesterday, I'm sitting at home watching the games, and I get a call from none other than the great Podfather. He's at Universal Studios down in Orlando, enjoying a trip with his family. Needed someone to come fill in for top 10 takeaways, and we thought, why not take Wake and Take and make it the Wake and top 10 takeaways, if you will. So we've got 10 takeaways for you. And we're going to do it. We're going to do the shtick. We're going to have exactly 10 takeaways. It's going to be under 30 minutes. It's going to be a good one. So go ahead and take out your coffee, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. As usual here, we have to start with the injuries. Every week of football is going to have an injuries. That is kind of the nature of a gladiator sport that we love and enjoy so much. So shout out to John Adams, one of the people working behind the scenes at Player Profiler, putting together and collecting all the injuries every week, and even the ones that return. So shout out to you, John. Ja'Tavion Sanders had a neck injury, was not able to return. That's definitely something to monitor, especially as Ja'Tavion Sanders had kind of become a player that you could rely on in full PPR, especially tight end premium leagues. Cole Kmet, he did take a shoulder pad to the kidney on the Roschon Johnson touchdown. Shout out Roschon Johnson touchdown, but was able to return to the game, so should hopefully be fine. Same could be said for Sam Darnold, who did pick up an ankle injury, but also returned to the game. David Montgomery did pick up a shoulder injury, but it has already been reported that he will be able to play on Thanksgiving. So just monitor that in terms of what kind of workload he gets on Thanksgiving, if he's even 100%, or if this is just going to be Jahmyr Gibbs feasting on Thursday. Josh Downs picked up a shoulder injury, and we'll just have to monitor that, as did Ashton Dulin. You can't go with top 10 takeaways without mentioning Ashton Dulin. He picked up an ankle injury. Hopefully he's okay. We love the Dulin here. Brian Robinson did pick up an ankle injury, and it looked pretty severe at first. A lot of people were very scared about it, especially as he's been playing through injuries the last few weeks. He was able to return, though, which just means, again, that Brian Robinson will probably continue to be less than 100% rest of season. Even if he's finding the end zone, he has lost a little bit of explosiveness over the last couple weeks. Austin Eckler, in that same backfield, did pick up a concussion, something to monitor this week. As we see the concussion protocol kind of getting tougher and tougher, he may not actually be able to return this week, but hopefully he can, especially with a probable less than 100% Brian Robinson. We want that backfield out there. But if not, we might actually get a little bit of action from Chris Rodriguez, believe it or not. Jaleel McLaughlin in Denver did pick up a knee injury, so that's something to monitor. As you know, as the Denver backfield is just so murky, you've got to, as much as we hate injuries, if one happens, you do kind of have the ability to say, okay, it's probably just going to be, in this case, Audric Estime and Javonte Williams, as opposed to the whole three kind of being cycled in and out. Gardner Minshew is done for the season, unfortunately. We here at Wake and Take, and now today, the top 10 takeaways, we are Gardner Minshew stans. We love the guy. Unfortunate to see his season end, and looking like we're going to get some Desmond Ridder action for the rest of the year, which is a thing. But also there's the potential Daniel Jones does clear the waivers this afternoon, so it's possible maybe he goes to Las Vegas or something. Who really knows? I am very curious to see where Danny Dimes goes. But for now, Gardner Minshew out for season, looking like some Ridder action down in Vegas. Romeo Doubs in Green Bay did pick up a concussion. We'll monitor that. We'll see. We'll see what happens. And then Saquon Barkley, probably powered him up, right? He got hit in his manhood, testicular torsion, John writes, but was able to return to the game. So that's always good. And shout out producer Dustin here. Tommy DeVito did pick up an injury. Looks to be a little bit of a pride string as he, we'll see what happened. He was kind of just pulled, but should be fine. Should hopefully be fine. We'll see. We have Tommy DeVito takes coming up in the show. One of our top 10 takeaways will be a Tommy DeVito type take. But we've got top 10 takeaways for you guys. And takeaway number one is going to start with a video. I think it's time we do this. I think it's official. It's unfortunate. We don't want this to be the case, but it is the case. It's time to say rest in peace to Dylan Lobb. Quite an unfortunate day yesterday for the Dylan Lobb fan club. One of the value rookie picks we were all expecting, especially just being a rookie running back on a team with a pretty murky backfield, especially as it pertains to pass catching running backs on this team. We got all the camp hype. He's catching passes. You know, he might be a slot receiver. He's going to be the new Christian McCaffrey. He gets Christian McCaffrey's number. All the hype to nothing. To absolutely nothing. In a game where there was no Zamir White, no Alexander Madison. Surely Dylan Lobb was going to get a touch. It had to be. There was just no way. We were all scrambling to pick him up on the waiver wire. Some people, myself included, were streaming him in some deeper leagues that really needed a running back. Because how could they not give the ball to Dylan Lobb? 5'10", 200 pounds, runs the 4.5, and can catch a ball like nobody's business. He had a game last year in college at New Hampshire against Central Michigan with over 200 receiving yards. This is a profile that we latch onto and love. And yet, when his opportunity came, it was Sincere McCormick. It was Amir Abdullah combining for 13 carries, 51 yards, 61 yards. Just an absolutely terrible outcome for Dylan Lobb and the fans. I mean, how are the Raiders not going to use Dylan Lobb in this game? In a divisional matchup against the Broncos, where you're playing from behind, where you need a pass-catching running back, this was the game. This was the game for Dylan Lobb to break out. And instead, it was Sincere McCormick. Amir Abdullah, shout out to him. Shout out producer Dustin. It was the year of the old running back, and he just keeps it going on his 8 carries and 28 yards. He also had 5 receptions for 37 yards and a touchdown, and those should have been Dylan Lobb's catches. But no, even Divine Diablo, the linebacker, has a catch for 34 yards. A linebacker caught a ball in yesterday's game, but not Dylan Lobb. Gardner Minshew ran the ball 2 times, and not Dylan Lobb. And it's just looking more and more likely that Dylan Lobb's only NFL carry is gonna be a fumble. It's unfortunate. It sucks, but it is what it is. Rest in peace to Dylan Lobb, and that is takeaway number 1. That unfortunately, our late round rookie picks were wasted on this older running back from New Hampshire that we thought would be the new Christian McCaffrey for some reason. When really, the new Christian McCaffrey was right in front of us the whole time. Of course, not a rookie pick, but the running back that we all wanted that can do it all. Takeaway number 2 is Saquon Barkley has already locked himself into the Hall of Fame. Last night, 26 carries, 255 yards, and 2 touchdowns, 4 receptions for 47 yards, and just continues to dominate game after game after game after game. And it's just unbelievable. And to make it sweeter in terms of yesterday in week 12, yesterday Saquon Barkley had more all-purpose yards, 302, than his former team, the New York Giants. The New York Giants only had 245 yards of offense last night. Saquon Barkley eclipsed that by himself. He's currently on pace to break Eric Dickerson's running back record. Over 2,100 rush yards he's on pace for this season. He already has over 1,500 all-purpose yards with his rushing and receiving yards. And there's still 6 more games left of the season. Saquon Barkley was the pick this year. The pick. I know we're going to have Derrick Henry tonight. Hopefully he continues his dominance. But in the middle to end of second round, valued as an ADP of RB6, that was the pick. That was the pick. The Wake and Take ranks, our official Wake and Take rankings, we had Saquon Barkley as RB4. And even that was too low, right? Like we even were like, oh, it's kind of bold to put him over Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, Jesus, RB1 right here, killing it. What a talent. And when you look at the profile, 6 foot, 230 pounds, the 4.4 40-yard dash, and still doing all this at 27 years old, I'm just not sure we're going to see a talent like this ever again. Ever again. Like how are we going to get another Saquon? How do we get another Derrick Henry, right? Like these are the pinnacles of NFL running backs. And the fact that we get to still enjoy Saquon Barkley for a couple more seasons makes this even better. The fact he's on the Philadelphia Eagles, a team that's finally treating him correctly, makes this even better. And it's just beautiful. He's in the Hall of Fame. I mean, already Saquon Barkley has locked himself into the Hall of Fame. Congratulations to everyone that got him this year. Seriously, especially in the Scott Fish Bowl as we're gearing up right now in the Scott Fish Bowl playoffs. I know that some of you probably made it to the next round just because of Saquon. I mean, what a performance for him in this week, but what a performance it's been all season. He's an all-time great. You look at his stuff, he only has 2 games this year under 100 yards. In fact, multiple games over 200 yards. He has just been unbelievable. So shout out Saquon Barkley. Shout out everyone that was actually able to draft him at the value this year. He was the pick in the second round. Saquon Barkley. What a guy. And as we talk about just never having a talent like him and how good he is and everything, it's hard not to think about another player that we thought was going to be, uber talented, breaking the game of football. And that's Caleb Williams. And Caleb Williams got back on track this week, of course. But that's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the fact that the fantasy football community in general is just too fickle. You have Caleb Williams, a rookie quarterback. Yes, taken at the 101. Yes, he has all these weapons around him. But the fact that we had such high expectations, and then for him just to have a few bad games, and everyone to just start screaming about how Caleb Williams is a bust, it was asinine. It was stupid. Because we had a few games of Caleb Williams this season before this stretch from week 8 through week 11 where he was not great. Right? The 2 games before, week 5 and 6 against the Carolina Panthers. 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. Against the Jacksonville Jaguars, over 200 yards and 4 touchdowns. A QB1 performance in week 6. And then, of course, backing it up with 3 straight games under 10 points. And everyone just starts screaming from their rooftops that Caleb Williams is a bust. You can't trust him anymore. The Chicago Bears offense sucks. You don't want any piece of it. And I just had to sit there and ask myself, why? Because when you looked at Caleb Williams, we all looked at Caleb Williams' college resume. We knew. We talked about it on Wake and Take at least. The fact that he struggled against top-tier opponents in college. The fact that, he just is in the Pac-12. It was hard to expect him to actually go out and be Patrick Mahomes in year 1, like so many people were saying. And the Wake and Take has changed so much from Caleb Williams this season. From in the offseason, it was selling him. We were overvaluing him in Dynasty. Our expectations were too high. To midseason saying to buy Caleb Williams as people were getting off of him for no good reason. We knew it was going to happen. We know that Matt Eberflus can't develop quarterbacks. We know that Shane Waldron's not a good offensive coordinator. And we've seen it play before our eyes, and yet still people were calling Caleb Williams a bust, selling him, getting out from under him, and benching him against a Minnesota Vikings defense that hasn't been good against the pass. And on Wake and Take, we said start Caleb Williams. He was our QB start of the week. And I called 3 touchdowns. He only got 2. But to see 32 of 47, 340 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, leading the team in rush yards. DJ Moore and Keenan Allen scoring touchdowns. Cole Kmet and Rome Odunze both having over 10 targets. That's an efficient offense with a good quarterback. And yes, they end up losing this game in overtime, but you have to be getting excited about Caleb Williams. And I just hope that a lot of you that tune into Wake and Take did have the opportunity to buy Caleb Williams during this lull period like you did. Because now he's throwing for over 300 yards, and it's not going to stop. We've seen it now. We've seen it in the week since Shane Waldron's been gone. This Bears offense has looked better. And now he's finally got the touchdowns. The seal's been broken. He's going to end the year a lot better than he was over the last few weeks. And that's why we were saying multiple times 2 weeks ago on the Market Watch episode, don't only buy Caleb Williams, but buy Rome Odunze as well. I was able to pick up Keenan Allen on the waiver wire in a league. That's how far people have gotten away from this Bears team. But they're fine. They're working it out. And Caleb Williams is turning into a good NFL quarterback like we all expected him to. It just took a little bit more time than we wanted it to. And honestly, shame on us for expecting quarterbacks to be elite in their rookie season. It's so rare. It's so rare. And unfortunately, Caleb Williams couldn't do it. The hype was just too high, and he's not reaching it. He's getting better, and that's fine. The rookie quarterbacks, though, that deserve their flowers, rookie quarterbacks, takeaway number 4. The offensive rookie of the year race will continue to heat up for the rest of the season. We called this a couple weeks ago on Wake and Take, and the Vegas odds continue to shift towards Bo Nix's favor. Now, we all know that Jayden Daniels is probably still going to win this thing, hence him being the favorite in Vegas. But both teams now, Bo Nix, Jayden Daniels, are sitting with the same record, the Broncos and the Commanders, 7-5, sitting in that final wild card spot in their respective conferences. It's very fascinating when you go look at the Vegas odds, and they are shifting in a bunch of different places. You go to Caesars, Jayden Daniels is minus 600, Bo Nix plus 400. But then you go to all the others, DraftKings, Caesars, FanDuel, Bet River, and whatever these other ones are. So many sports books these days. You see Jayden Daniels at minus 130, minus 150. Bo Nix at plus 100 to plus 130. And it's going to continue to trend that way as the Broncos heat up and the Commanders continue to lose steam. How the hell are you going to lose to the Cowboys? The Cooper Rush Cowboys. How are you going to lose to that team? I'm not sure. And as we go through the rest of the season and Bo Nix continues to play better and Jayden Daniels continues to play worse, we're going to see these odds change. And it's going to be very, very interesting to watch as we go through the rest of the season. Currently, of course, Jayden Daniels is leading the way. Not only in pass yards and rush yards, but rushing touchdowns as well. But it's just getting closer and closer and closer. Right now, Jayden Daniels has 2,613 pass yards. Bo Nix is 2,548 pass yards. Bo Nix is leading in passing touchdowns with 16 to Jayden Daniels' 12. He has one more interception, 6-5. But then the rushing yards is where it really starts to separate. Of course, Jayden Daniels, 556 rush yards and 5 touchdowns. To Bo Nix's 300 rush yards and 4 touchdowns. But I just don't think the voters are looking purely at stats. I think they're looking at record. I think they're going to especially have the short-term bias looking towards the end of the season, especially, not how they started the year. And Bo Nix is going to find himself getting a lot more votes than people expected at the beginning of the season. In fact, I have a ticket for Caleb Williams winning Rookie of the Year that I placed at the NFL draft. DraftKings Sportsbook was doing a little bit of a promo where you could get free $25 bets during the NFL draft. So I put it on Caleb Williams to win Rookie of the Year. Should have put it on Bo Nix or Jayden Daniels, though, as that race will continue to heat up through the rest of the season. That's going to be kind of the award to watch, I guess, along with the MVP. But right now, Rookie of the Year on the offensive side of the ball. Jayden Daniels versus Bo Nix. Kind of crazy. No one saw it coming. But it's a fun one. And it'll just continue to develop as we go on the rest of the season. And I wouldn't be surprised if a couple of these sports books start to have Bo Nix ahead of Jayden Daniels, as they're both like minus and plus 100 respectively. It's interesting to watch. Probably still going to be Jayden Daniels. So he's just more fun to watch. And I think arguably you could say that the Commanders, kind of change to glory is a little bit more dramatic than the Broncos. But even then, they both have the same just like bad team to good team. It's interesting. It's definitely interesting. So that is takeaway number 4. And as we talk about rookie quarterbacks, I think it's important to talk about year 2 quarterbacks. And takeaway number 5 is Anthony Richardson is who he is. And is who he is a boomer bust quarterback with a high ceiling, but a low floor. And yes, he had a good performance last week, filling back in for Joe Flacco after being benched for a few games. But did we really expect him to do it 2 weeks in a row? The answer should have been no. The Detroit Lions defense is not only vaunted, but we haven't really seen it from Anthony Richardson since his rookie season. And in his rookie season, it was just from running. And credit to Anthony Richardson, the runs are coming back. Last week he finally had the rushing touchdown. And this week, 10 carries for 61 yards. That's nothing to scoff at. But we're right back to him sucking as a passer. How are you going to go 11-28 after finally having a game with over a 50% completion percentage? And I understand that a few big plays were taken away from him. But still, you should not be having a lower than 50% completion percentage on such a consistent basis, Anthony. Like, what are you doing? And that's the thing. He is who he is. And this just goes back to the Caleb Williams point, in the fantasy community is just way too fickle. We had one good performance from Anthony Richardson, and everyone went right back onto you have to start Anthony Richardson week in, week out, no matter what. You can't bench him. You can't bench him because he's risky. It sucks. We love the ceiling, but that's the thing. He was always drafted as a developmental prospect because as talented as he is, he still has so much to improve upon. And he will improve upon that. Don't get me wrong. I'm buying and still buying and will continue to buy Anthony Richardson so long as I can. But we have to accept the fact that he's a prospect. He has very minimal action as a starter going back to even the college days. So we'll see how it happens. I'm going to recommend buying him, but just don't start him consistently unless it's superflex, right? Like you can take the risk there. But if you've bet on him as your single QB quarterback, get a pocket passer. It's just not happening on a consistent basis. And I don't even know if we could predict it. You would think, right? He's playing against the Lions. It's a shootout. They're going to be playing from behind. He's going to have to get these chunk plays. But no! It seems he tried them, but they're just not there because it's so easy to stop. Defenses could so easily say, I'm playing against Anthony Richardson. All I have to do is give a spy and play prevent because he can't do anything underneath. So when he plays against a good defense, he's going to struggle, unfortunately. But it's fine because he's still young. This is technically year one from him, even if it's year two. And they've won enough games to where they're not going to replace him. And he's going to be fine. But just know that he is who he is. And that is a risky boomer bust play at the quarterback position. He'll develop into a great player, hopefully like Josh Allen. But for now, you've got to temper expectations and just hope you have another option for the rest of the season. And that's fine. He is who he is. And that is a young year two quarterback who's probably a good asset to have in Dynasty as he develops. And that's takeaway number 5 is Anthony Richardson is who he is. A year two quarterback that's boomer bust. And takeaway number 6 is that these year two quarterbacks are all keeping their jobs. CJ Stroud, of course. Anthony Richardson, of course. But Will Levis finishes yesterday beating the Houston Texans, 18 of 24, 278 yards, 2 touchdowns, a pick 6, a fumble, but gets it done. He's starting to carry again. And yes, he's getting sacked. It's the Will Levis experience, but he's young. He's developing. And over the last few weeks, coming back from his injury after watching Mason Rudolph, he has improved. 19 points in week 10, 16 points in week 11. And he's doing just enough to where the Tennessee Titans are looking around their roster and saying, is Will Levis really the problem? Or is it the fact we don't have a good offensive line? Is it the fact there's still some holes on defense? Is it the fact we could probably use a better weapon than just Calvin Ridley? And all of those answers are yes. So Will Levis is keeping his job, and that's awesome. And so is Bryce Young. Bryce Young continuing to build confidence, continuing to improve. Barely loses to the Chiefs yesterday. The Panthers lose by 3 to the Super Bowl defending champs. And Bryce Young, 21 of 35, 260 yards, a touchdown, 20 rush yards, and no interceptions. And that's all we're asking for from these younger guys. Just don't turn the ball over. Start to improve. Be steady. Build upon your performances. Be consistent. And in this game, Chuba Hubbard got fantasy points. David Moore got fantasy points. Adam Thielen was fine. Xavier Legette was fine. And this is a tough Kansas City Chiefs defense. To only lose by 3 for Bryce Young, that's impressive. And if you look at his other few games heading into this, since Andy Dalton was benched again, he's been fine. 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions, whatever. 170 yards, a touchdown, and an interception, but winning the game. And against the Giants, he won the game as well with no turnovers. So Bryce Young, as much as we like to hate him, he's building upon his performances. He's steadily improving, getting his confidence up, and doing just enough to where the Panthers are able to look around their team and say, is Bryce Young really the problem? Or do we need to shore up this offensive line and maybe help out the defense and commit to him for at least one more season? And so that's takeaway number 6. These year 2 starting quarterbacks are going to keep their job in year 3. And to answer your question, terminal sarcasm, yes. Yes, Pip loves the mouth. The bird loves the mouth. And before we get to takeaway number 7, I do want to go ahead and play a little bit of an ad here. I don't know if you guys have heard, but Fast Draft DFS is live, and it's awesome.
Oh, incredible news about Fast Draft. Fast Draft DFS is live. It's called the Flex 6 Frenzy. You just draft 6 guys, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends for the Sunday slate. You like Jahmyr Gibbs? You like Jackson Smith-Njigba? You like Tyrone Tracy? Draft him. And the beauty is you can just order 5 teams, submit your rankings, and Fast Draft will email you the results. We awarded $1,000 in prizes our first week, and we're just going up from there. Soon there's going to be a select 6. No drafting at all. You just pick any 6 guys. Our DFS mantra, just say no to salaries on Fast Draft. Don't forget there's free tools on Fast Draft too. You want to get ready for startup season? We've created the best dynasty mock draft experience there is. And if you want to play in these DFS contests and our best ball contest for 2025 coming very soon too, just use promo code PODFATHER when you deposit and you get a free draft. It's that easy. And you're like, oh, I already have Fast Draft. Great. Refer a friend. Have them put your username in as the promo code, and then you and your friend will both get an instant deposit match up to $25. We got DFS. We got Dynasty Mocks. We got Best Ball. It's all there for you on fastdraft.app. Check it out. And the promo code is PODFATHER.
Go check out Fast Draft. Cannot recommend it enough. The DFS Flex 6 Frenzy is an awesome tournament. I love it so much. Use your friend's promo code or use mine, Billy Joel Fan 87, for a first deposit match up to $25. We're here on Top 10 Takeaways, and takeaway number 7 is an apology to Arthur Smith. And I hate to say this. I'm the president of the Kyle Pitts fan club. And, last year I was just enraged at the way Arthur Smith was not only utilizing Kyle Pitts, but the rest of the Falcons offense. I mean, how could you split carries with Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier? Why are you not force feeding Drake London and Kyle Pitts? Why is Jonnu Smith getting so many targets? These were questions I asked myself. And I've just got to apologize to Arthur Smith I think he knew what he was doing, and Jonnu Smith may just be better than Kyle Pitts. I can't believe those words just came out of my mouth. As the president of the Kyle Pitts fan club, I just have to say I'm disappointed. I'm just disappointed in Kyle Pitts and just impressed by what Jonnu Smith is putting together. And Jonnu Smith is not just doing this, on one team. He not only took a lot of targets away from Kyle Pitts, but is now taking targets away from Tyreek Hill on the Miami Dolphins. And in 2023, both Kyle Pitts and Jonnu Smith had 3 touchdowns. They both had about 50 receptions. Kyle Pitts had 667 yards. Jonnu Smith had 582. So, yeah, Kyle Pitts outperformed him. But, man, Jonnu Smith this year is sticking it to Kyle Pitts, and it's not even close. Jonnu Smith right now is the tight end 5 on the entire season. The entire season, that includes the times where Skylar Thompson was the quarterback. That includes the first few weeks of the season where, he really wasn't even utilized. And Kyle Pitts, on the other hand, is tight end 10. And his usage just continues to dwindle. He only has 1 game this season with 9 targets. Whereas Jonnu Smith just had a game with 11 and 9 receptions. Arthur Smith, I've got to apologize to you, as you must have been right. Jonnu Smith must just be better than Kyle Pitts. 535 yards and 4 touchdowns so far this season. To Kyle Pitts, 494 and 3. Jonnu Smith has 13 more receptions. It's painful, but it seems to be true, as they're both extremely athletic tight ends. Kyle Pitts, of course, has the size on Jonnu Smith, but he's just not performing. And I know that the Falcons are on bye this week, but I just had to bring up my disappointment in Kyle Pitts and my apologies to Arthur Smith, as he really did know what he was doing. And Kyle Pitts just isn't the alpha that we wanted him to be. So that's takeaway number 7. I'm sorry, Arthur Smith, but Jonnu Smith must actually just be better than Kyle Pitts. And speaking of Arthur Smith, takeaway number 8 is that Jaylen Warren is being Jaylen Warren again, right? We've seen it for the past couple seasons where Jaylen Warren just starts to take away, not necessarily a lot of volume away from Najee Harris, but Jaylen Warren is just so much more efficient with his touches that it becomes a split backfield in terms of fantasy points. And Jaylen Warren started the year off slow, was, hurt, couldn't really get through it. But now as the season goes along, he is starting to catch up to Najee Harris without as many touches. And it's only a matter of time before he fully takes over this backfield. Since week 7, Jaylen Warren is the RB 30 and Najee Harris is the RB 27. And Jaylen Warren, the last 4 weeks, has averaged over 4 yards a carry, whereas Najee Harris, over the last 4 weeks, only has 1 game averaging more than 3.5 yards per carry. And that was against the New York Giants. So can we even give it to him? So as Najee Harris starts to lose efficiency, Jaylen Warren starts to gain efficiency. And we all know that Arthur Smith is not married to one man in the backfield. He will start giving the ball to someone else. And we're seeing it slowly but surely trend towards Jaylen Warren this week. Jaylen Warren, 11 carries to Najee Harris's 16. 3 receptions to Najee Harris's 2. So just a few less. But just keep an eye on it as the season goes along. It looks like you could start both, technically, if you want to bet on volume for Najee Harris. But in terms of efficiency, it's Jaylen Warren. And no, he'll never take over the backfield, but he is definitely back to being a thorn in the side of Najee Harris. And this is a split backfield. He is what he is. This is true. But this is officially a split backfield where you can trust both of them in terms of a floor. No ceiling really from either, unless Jaylen Warren decides to have a couple touchdowns. Or, of course, Najee Harris begins to have a couple touchdowns. But Arthur Smith, as we talk about him being right about Jonnu Smith, just loves to split his backfield as well. And it will be Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris a lot closer to each other. And Jaylen Warren might actually be the one you'll want in terms of fantasy points. Najee Harris will still get more touches, as that's just the type of running back he is. But Jaylen Warren's just more efficient and can do more with his touches and will likely have more fantasy points rest of season. He's healthy and is taken over in terms of fantasy points. And this is a good point from Mac Fan. Yes, Harris is a free agent at the end of the season, and I just think that's why they'll probably run Najee Harris into the ground. They got 1 more year of him. They're just going to give him more carries. And that's how it's going to be. He's getting more touches. That's how it is. But Jaylen Warren is doing his thing yet again. And another Jaylen that people were kind of giving up on, at the very least benching, but a lot of people even began to drop, is Jalen Waddle. And Podfather actually went on the couch last week with Sigmund Bloom and talked about Jalen Waddle. They were asked, should we drop Jalen Waddle? And Podfather said, no. No, we should not be dropping Jalen Waddle. Yes, it's concerning that he has been abysmal the last few weeks, but Tua Tagovailoa is slinging it, and this Miami Dolphins offense is getting a lot better. It's only a matter of time before Jalen Waddle has his game, and man, did he have his game. 8 of 9 targets, 144 yards, and a touchdown. Even diminishing Jonnu Smith's day. Pretty impressive game from Jalen Waddle, and it just goes to show that you can't give up on it, right? And for the people that remembered that this is football and Tua Tagovailoa is a football player and knew that he was going to be able to return to football and bought into Miami Dolphins offense while Tua was out, are probably over the moon right now, as since week 8, since Tua has returned, Jonnu Smith is the tight end 2, Tyreek Hill is the wide receiver 19, Jalen Waddle is now the wide receiver 26, and Devon Achane is the RB2, and Tua himself is the QB 8 since week 8. It's just so impressive what's going on in Miami. You want any piece of it. Yeah, sure, you might not be able to predict which one is which, in terms of who's going to pop off on a week to week. It seems Jonnu Smith and Devon Achane are locked in. And we'll get a little bit of a bounce back and forth between Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. But at the very least, Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill are still going to be usable. Like, yeah, Tyreek Hill, a floor game in this game, but 5 receptions of 48 yards is still 9.8 points. No touchdown sucks, but it's there. So anyway, Jalen Waddle, shout out Podfather and Sigmund Bloom for not giving up on him. What a performance from him. And it just goes to show that wide receivers can just get it done. And which brings us to the final takeaway number 10 on top 10 takeaways is the Tom Savage corollary lives on. This is, of course, a little bit of a verbiage here on the top 10 takeaways. The Tom Savage corollary, essentially, if you're unfamiliar, just a bad quarterback, will lock on to their main target because that's all they can do. They can't process a field good enough. And you have to run a simple offense, and generally, plays are going to be designed to get the wide receiver one the ball. And well, the Tom Savage corollary lives on year to year to year to year to year. This year, as we close out the season, we are finding himself reappearing in 2 different ways. One, on the Dallas Cowboys, Tom Savage is now Cooper Rush throwing the ball to CeeDee Lamb, who's, of course, the new DeAndre Hopkins. CeeDee Lamb over the last 4 weeks, 46 targets. And no touchdowns are coming, and that's kind of the point here with the Tom Savage corollary is you don't really get the touchdowns, but you damn sure get the volume, and you hope for the touchdown. And a lot of people gave up on CeeDee Lamb, sold low on CeeDee Lamb, but he's just going to produce. He's going to be consistent. He's not going to have a floor game. And that's what's so interesting about this Tom Savage corollary is, you might not get those 30-pointers, but you're also not really getting the 5-pointers. Like, you're getting 10 to 15 points a game from these guys. And you're just going to have to eat it, right? And you can get in at a decent value. And 1 week, they're going to get a touchdown and get that 20, 25 points. So 46 targets over the last few weeks for CeeDee Lamb. Tom Savage is reappearing as Cooper Rush. But for those of you that gave up on Malik Nabers, shame on you, as Tom Savage finds himself as an Italian Tommy DeVito this season as well. Malik Nabers, 9 targets, 6 receptions, 64 yards, which, only 12.4 points. But it's going to get better. This was only their first game together, so we should be encouraged. In fact, I would say buy Malik Nabers as we close out the season. He's going to have a good push, especially as you look for the rest of the schedule. They have the Cowboys next week, the Saints, the Ravens, the Falcons, and the Colts for the championship. Malik Nabers will be locked on for the rest of the year with Tommy DeVito at quarterback or Drew Lock at quarterback for that matter. He's going to keep getting a ton of targets, and he's going to keep producing with a high floor. Don't give up on Malik Nabers. If he hits the block this week, remember the Tom Savage corollary and know that Malik Nabers will be fine. So those were our top 10 takeaways for week 12. We had rest in peace, Dylan Love, Saquon Barkley into the Hall of Fame. The Caleb Williams bust narrative was ridiculous. The Offensive Rookie of the Year race will continue to heat up. Anthony Richardson is who he is, a boomer bust quarterback. Year 2, starting quarterbacks are keeping their jobs. An apology to Arthur Smith. Jonnu Smith is awesome. Jaylen Warren is pushing Najee Harris in the Steelers' backfield. You should never give up on the Miami Dolphins and Jalen Waddle. And the Tom Savage corollary lives on. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you hit that like button and make sure you subscribe to the Player Profiler channel. We'll be back on Wake and Take tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern here on the Player Profiler channel, talking the waiver wire and whatever NFL news there is. This was Jason filling in for the Podfather. Everyone, have a magnificent Monday, a wonderful rest of your week. Peace.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.